Good afternoon, South Africa. Thank you for joining me today on the 8th day of our lockdown. Over the past week, we have had to come to terms with a new way of life. The lockdown, while necessary to prevent the spread of the coronavirus, has forced us to rethink on how we live, work, learn, and play. This lockdown has impacted everyone in different ways. Parents are having to come to grips with how to homeschool their children. Students are having to learn the discipline to study from home as they are unable to attend classes. Families are having to deal with how to keep in touch when they are unable to visit one another. And too many South Africans are facing the uncertainty of how they will continue to make a living if they are unable to go to work. I'm deeply concerned about small business owners, informal traders, and others who won't be able to earn a living and an income over these coming weeks. On a personal level, the lockdown has forced the People's Dialogue to take a new approach to how we engage our communities. Earlier this year, I committed to releasing the final report of the People's Dialogue in March of this year. The lockdown made this date quite impossible. Similarly, the current situation has caused uncertainty over our plans to launch a new political party by June this year as we await the pandemic to unfold. Despite this, I remain committed to the project to fixing South Africa and building a political alternative for all South Africans who, like me, feel they do not have a political home. So, while we are stuck at home, I decided I'd like to give you an opportunity to ask me some of the questions you'd like answered about the People's Dialogue and our plans for the future. Since I put out the call for questions yesterday, we have received thousands of submissions. While I won't be able to get through all of these questions today, I look forward to answering more of your questions in the days and weeks to come. So, let's begin. Let me start with the first question from Facebook by Mlux Tamlulax. The question reads, how old were you when you got married and what is the fundamental recipe for long and dynamic relationship? Cause once I saw your post of your family and marriage. I got married at the age of 22. Just a few weeks ago, I celebrated 38 years of my marriage. At the time, I had taken the decision to go into business. And going into business, for me, family stability was crucial. And I was really very fortunate that I got married to a woman who provided that stability over the last 38 years. And I'm so eternally grateful to her for that relationship. Let me get into the next two questions by Mtobisi Dlamini, and the other one by Melusi Ngobo. The one by Dlamini says, are you still going to launch your party by June or will you postpone since you are facing coronavirus? And the one by Mr. Ngobo says, should you continue launching a new party when you really call it, or will you call it the People's Dialogue? First of all, because of the current situation faced by the country with this invisible coronavirus, unfortunately, we have to respect the laws of our country, forcing us at this point in time to put everything on hold, but we will continue communicating with you to really give you an update. As regard to Mr. Ngobo, regarding whether we're going to be launching the party, absolutely we are going to launch a new party. In terms of the timing, that is something that we don't have any control over because of the current pandemic of corona that we are facing. Are we going to call it the People's Dialogue? Let me tell you something. The name of our political party is going to be decided by you, the people of South Africa. There will be a questionnaire out soon where we are going to ask you to really give you suggestions about the name of our political party. Let me also deal with Zungu's question from Twitter, which says, what is your take in the recent spate of the coronavirus and how government is dealing with the matter? I've said this on many occasions from the time the president announced the attack on this invisible danger that our country is facing. That I'm personally pleased with the manner in which the president and government is handling this matter. This disease, this pandemic, it's a reality, and it's a reality that all of us as South Africans needs to take individual and collective responsibility to ensure that we defeat it. So I'm really very pleased with how the current government is handling the matter, and I hope that all of us as South Africans, regardless of our status and our positions, if we can do everything possible to ensure that we cooperate with government. Another interesting question by Isaac Khafela on Twitter, asking, what do you think about the 37 million rands border fence with a height of a 10-year-old? I think, for me, it's actually quite disappointing. When I initially saw this a few days ago at night, I was complimentary. But looking at it the following morning, realized that this is pure PR exercise than actually protecting the borders of our country. I'm sure all of you as South Africans are aware, I've always called for illegal immigration to really be taken as a priority for South Africa. We want people of the world to come to South Africa, but we want them to come here legally. And when they are here in South Africa, they must respect our laws. For those who happen to come to South Africa without having the necessary documents, Home Affairs has got a constitutional responsibility to ensure that they're immediately documented. Those who don't qualify, Home Affairs has got a constitutional responsibility to ensure that those people are sent back to their respective countries. Therefore, building of border fence or wall, it's really very important for our country. But we can only succeed if Home Affairs can really do what is right for the future of our country. The next one from Peter. What do you think the corruption problem is so bad in South Africa compared to other countries, even other African nations? I think, corruption for me, it's a kind of disease that actually makes me angry. It disappoints me because South Africa, being the last country in the continent to receive our independence, I thought, and I was under impression on the 27th of April 1994 when I went to vote, I thought South Africa and the new government would have actually learned from the experiences that hold Africa's progress, which is corruption. But unfortunately, 26 years down the line, corruption is really one of the biggest enemies South Africa is facing. We are known today by the world as one of the most corrupt nations or countries in the world. And for as long as we as South Africans are not going to handle this matter, hold this by the horn, we are not really going to succeed. So it is very important for all of us as South Africans to hold the government accountable to ensure that we fight this evil system of corruption, because corruption, actually what it does, it robs our poor people of the opportunities for us to provide the necessary services that government is constitutionally obliged to do. I've also received two interesting questions from Innocent Mulete and Lester Dumpy on Twitter regarding the death penalty, asking my opinion regarding the death penalty and what sort of crimes do you reckon warrant the death penalty. I am on record over the last 20 odd years being a supporter of the death penalty. Death penalty for two categories in particular. Those who rape our women, and we have enough evidence to that effect, I feel we must put them away, and I will not apologize to anyone about that. Those who commit first-degree murder, those who plan to go and kill other people, I feel as a South African, I will not apologize to anyone that such people must be put away, because all of us, we deserve to live in a country where we are safe from this criminal activity. Another question from Zaza Kandaba on Facebook, from Facebook. The question says, if you are the president of South Africa, how would you address the racial inequalities that failed to be intended to address, but instead open up loopholes for corruption? Racial inequality is still a huge factor in South Africa that drives some of us to deep sense of hopelessness. For me to have committed myself to public service is precisely to deal with the question of inequality and social justice. I strongly believe, and I also like people of South Africa to know that I'm unapologetic. We cannot live in a society where South Africa is known today by the world to be the most unequal society in the world. And most of it happened post-1994. What a disgrace. What, as government, we need to really address this question of inequality to ensure that we build a very strong middle class. We use incentives, we use creative policies that can ensure that those who are not today part of our economic mainstream become also members of the economic mainstream of our country. What is the best tool that we can use as a country? First of all, for me, education is a priority. Without educating our people, regardless of how much money you can give them, be billions or not, if you are not going to give them the necessary education, you are not going to really succeed. Yes, at the same time, we need to ensure that once our people have received the education, because one thing with education is not something that one can take a short-term view. This requires us, all of us, to really be committed to long-term investment of our people. But at the same time, make sure that we get the private sector, particularly our corporate South Africa, to ensure that our people, particularly our Black South Africans, are given opportunities to really be part of our system, of our economic system in our country. In terms of small business, a question from Ian McLoy. What are you planning to do about the low success rates of startup entrepreneurs in South Africa? I think it's actually quite a very important question. For me, my view is that there is dissemination of small businesses in this country to a large extent has been as a result of what are called draconian labor laws. Because our labor laws over the years were there to support big businesses, support employed people at the expense of small businesses, at the expense of unemployed South Africans. So for me, for small businesses to succeed, obviously I think we've got to give our people the necessary education, but at the same time we need to relax our labor laws so that we give small businesses an opportunity to try for them one day to succeed. Let me also respond to Erato Di Tato's question. Would you employ managers from where services are rendered as ministers, or also would you expect the tangible output as evidence? I think my reading of this question is actually quite important. That for us as a society, as a country, to really be able to survive and succeed, we need a professional public service. Ministers serving our people as public servants must possess the necessary skills, not what we see today in our country. The only thing majority of our ministers know is politics and nothing else. Once they are not in a political environment, there's nothing else that they can do. I strongly believe that as government, when you're the president of the country, you have to ensure that your ministers must be experts in the subject matter or in the portfolio that they will be holding, not just purely people who only know politics. Another question from Maxwell Serrati on Twitter. 3 questions. First one says, what will you do to rebuild and sustain local manufacturers? 2, when are you the president? When you're the president, will you continue with tenderpreneurs that benefits individuals, or will you go back to Public Works Department that benefits the country? 3rd, what is your stance on TVET colleges? Let me start with the first one. Will you build and sustain how will you build and sustain local manufacturing? I think for South Africa to succeed, local manufacturing is crucial, it's critical. First of all, we need to really deal with our labor laws that allows and attracts businesses to invest in this country, both local South African businesses and international investors to come and set up factories in South Africa. Secondly, to deal with the question of tenderpreneurs. This tenderpreneurs has been a very unfortunate situation that really happened to our country, that benefited individuals instead of actually benefiting civil society and real entrepreneurs. Without any doubt, the tenderpreneur system and this patronage network, we have to really destroy it, so that as government, you create an equitable business environment that allows entrepreneurs to really be able to use their God-given skills to take advantage of the opportunities presented to them. In terms of Public Works Department, I think and very strongly that as government, under our current situation, as government, we've got to try as much as possible to rebuild some of our own capacity on a long-term basis, because South Africa really needs a government that can assist in driving economic recovery of our country. And my stance on TVET colleges. Very unfortunate that over the last 26 years that we destroyed our technical capacities. Plumbers, bricklayers and so forth, electricians. It hurts me every time when I'm in my communities. I look at the type of people who have to really provide such services are people from outside. We don't know what type of training they've received. We're not really putting any effort into this. Without any doubt, we need massive investment in TVET colleges that are going to empower our people, working with universities, working with the private sector to ensure that as we give our youth the ideological, the educational training, at the same time, it must be in line with what the industry out there requires. So this partnership with universities and the private sector is crucial in the revival of TVET colleges. Another question from Hamilton on electoral reform. Hamilton says, when you say electoral reform, what exactly do you mean? Is this a personal mission or a collective view? What is it, the current electoral system that you think is not working? I think, like all successful democracies in the world, and I think it's something that for South Africans, the reason why almost 19 million of our people did not actually go out and vote, eligible voters, is because they don't really no longer believe in our electoral system. People want to really be able to elect their own councillor. People want to be able to elect their own member of parliament. People want to be able, when they go out and elect for the president, they must go and elect the president, not political parties. So when I talk about we need reform on our electoral system, that would allow all of us, when I live in Alexander, or I live in Soweto, or I live in Tshwane, anywhere else in the country, I need to really have the power to elect a local councillor, not elected by the political party. Anyone representing me in parliament, it must be someone elected by us as the voters. The president of the country should not be elected by political parties, must be elected by us, the voters. Let me also take the opportunity to respond to Roberta Da Silva's question on labor relations. The question says, what would your approach do to a labor system and policies? I'm on record over many years to be against the current labor relations, more especially when it relates to labor being part of government. The tripartite system of ANC is unfortunately compromising the success of our economy. Without any doubt, I'm a big supporter of independent labor organizations for them to protect vulnerable employees. It is crucial that we have independent labor organizations so that government must be held accountable. But a system where you have a government as part of the labor organization It is for that reason that we will never have economic policies that will advance the success of our country. Thank you very much, South Africans, for giving me this opportunity to answer some of your questions. I know because of thousands of questions, what my team and I decided to do was to try and really consolidate them as much as possible. For those whose questions I never had an opportunity to answer them today, this will be a weekly or regular podcast where we can be engaged. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I look forward to further engagements in the near future.